50% of Americans can't afford their rent or their mortgage, according to a survey by Redfin. In this video, we're going to discuss why this is a problem and how you can avoid it. We're also going to discuss some regrets homebuyers have so that you can avoid those too. Lastly, I'll share specific things you can do if you find yourself in this situation. So make sure you stay until the end of the video so you can hear that. But first, I need you to hit that subscribe button. If you want to get better at real estate investing, you have to follow this channel. Also, go to the description of this video. I have a bunch of free resources that'll help you get started in real estate investing. Let's start with a clip explaining the sacrifices people are making simply to pay their rent and their mortgage.
Some of those sacrifices include skipping vacations and working extra hours. Others are more serious, like skipping meals and medical treatments, selling belongings, and dipping into retirement savings. The study actually found a surprising number of millennials who are already dipping into their retirement savings accounts. Of those who are struggling, 20% say they've borrowed money from family or friends to help them get by. Someone who bought their home a few years ago may not be struggling as much because mortgage rates were more like 3% back then, but more recent home buyers are dealing with mortgage rates around 7%. Still, renters may be struggling the most. People dealing with increasing rent prices are still watching their payments go up. According to the Consumer Price Index, rent prices started this year nearly 6% higher than 1 year before, and most of us didn't see a 6% raise in the last year. There is some hope among economists, though, that the Federal Reserve could possibly cut interest rates in June. In the meantime, according to this report, the average American household earns about $30,000 less than what's needed to afford the median price home.
It's important to understand why some people find themselves in this situation, because this is a huge problem. The median home sales price at the beginning of 2020 was $329,000. At its peak at the end of 2022, that number rose to $479,000. The problem during this period is that for whatever reason, a lot of people thought this was their only time that they would ever be able to buy a property. So what happened was many people paid more for a property than it was worth and paid more for a property than they could actually afford on a monthly basis. When you do that, it's very easy to find yourself in a situation where you can't afford your mortgage. I've said it so many times on this channel, never pay more for a property than what it's worth. Don't get into a bidding war. Don't let fear of missing out cause you to make a terrible decision. Your mortgage as a homeowner should be no more than 30% of your household income, preferably your take-home pay. But what's generally recommended is no more than 30% of your gross income. A lot of people are way above that and they're struggling now. I don't want you to do anything out of desperation because you're always going to regret it. Speaking of regret, according to a survey done last year, more than half of home buyers, 56%, have felt in over their heads financially since purchasing their home. And almost 2/3, 62%, have struggled to make mortgage payments on time. So clearly there's some truth to what I'm saying. It's very easy to get into a home that you can't actually afford when you look at your total household budget. It's important to make sure that this mortgage expense is not going to become a burden for you. Like I always say, you have to protect yourself. No one's going to look out for you more than you. More than 1 in 4 recent homebuyers claim their overall financial situation and their debt burden have gotten worse since purchasing a home. More than half of homebuyers have taken on additional debt to maintain their lifestyle. It's very alarming to me to hear that folks are taking on more debt to afford their lifestyle. In the extended news clip that we didn't get a chance to see, it talks about how high credit card debt is now compared to some years ago. And it's really a bad situation. There are 2 specific homebuyer regrets that are very concerning to me, and I don't want any of you watching to fall into this situation. 30% of homeowners in this survey felt that they bought a home too quickly. The worst thing you can do, in my opinion, other than paying more for a property than what it's worth, is to rush and buy a house. Everyone online says, don't wait to buy real estate and wait. This may not be the right strategy for you if it's going to cause you to rush and overpay for a property, which is what a lot of people are doing now and what a lot of people have been doing over the past 4 years. Clever found that 28% of buyers are waiting to enter the current challenging real estate market until rates and prices drop. But many waiting for market dynamics to change are getting impatient. Burdened by years of underbuilding, inventory has been stuck at record low levels. which has increased competition and prices while compelling homebuyers to close the deal too early. Let me also say this. If you do find a good property and it's reasonably priced, you can afford the payment regardless of the interest rate, and it's not going to be a burden for you, then you shouldn't hesitate. It's probably something that you want to pursue. However, based on what we're learning today, many people are buying properties in the wrong way. If you thought this regret was bad, it gets worse. 23% of buyers felt pressured to make an offer. Don't let anyone pressure you to buy a house. A lot of people online will make you feel like if you don't buy a house this year, you'll never get an opportunity to buy a house ever again. It's completely false. Look, I'm an advocate for home ownership. I'm an advocate for building wealth, real estate investing, and all those things. I want every one of you to have a home to live in. I want every one of you to have some investment properties. However, it has to make sense for you. You can't just impulsively go ahead and buy things without doing your due diligence, without doing your homework, and without truly understanding if it makes sense. There's actually one more regret I want to share. 18% of home buyers in the survey bought the house sight unseen, and now they regret it. If you don't listen to anything else that I've said in this video, listen to this. Do not ever buy a house sight unseen. Do not ever buy a house without looking at it first. Also, don't buy a house without doing an inspection. Anyone telling you to do either of those things does not care about you and is leading you down a bad path. If you're a long distance real estate investor like me who lives in an expensive city and invests elsewhere, you can use things like FaceTime to do walkthroughs with your real estate agent. When I'm buying properties, when I'm looking for properties, we get on FaceTime. I have a checklist of everything that I want her to look at in the property, and we go through that list, however long it takes. But I refuse to make an offer on something from thousands of miles away without seeing it. If you're local, you have no excuse. I don't care how busy you are. Get in your car, get on the bus, walk, however you need to get there, and go check out that property for yourself. Make sure that you understand at least how things look, and you might be able to observe some potential issues even before you get to the inspection stage, and you'll be able to see if you really want to move forward with that property. It's worth the time. If you're someone who's relocating, get in the car, get on the plane, get on the bus, get on the train, and go to that city, go to that town, and look at some properties for yourself. Take a weekend and look at a bunch of properties and see what you like. That's something that you should do. It's worth the time and it's worth the investment so that you don't have to buy a house sight unseen. The point I'm making is you need to figure out a way to see the property, whether it's virtually through video or whether it's in person. If you're just starting out in real estate, especially, buying sight unseen is not something you should be thinking about at all. Now it's time for us to talk about things that you can do if you're currently in a situation where you cannot afford your mortgage comfortably. For example, if you're living in a single family home and you have several rooms, perhaps you have a room that's not really used, or maybe you have a room that's completely empty. Something you can explore doing is renting out a room in your house to generate some income and subsidize the cost of your mortgage. You can do this on a long-term basis, you can do this on a mid-term basis, or you can do it on a short-term rental basis. There's different options that you can use. I would encourage you to consider it if it's something that you think you might be comfortable with, especially if your current mortgage feels like a burden and you don't really want to sell your property just yet. It's something to consider. If you have some land on your property and you have enough space to build an accessory dwelling unit in the back or on the side or something like that, that's something you may want to consider and can help you generate some more income. If you have a garage that you're open to converting to a unit, that's another option to generate some income to help subsidize the cost of your mortgage. If you have a basement with an entrance, that's something else you may want to consider to help you generate some income. You can make that into an apartment. Now, with the strategies I've mentioned, you want to make sure that you're within the law and the rules of the city or how to do those kind of things. And that information is typically readily available in a simple Google search, but it's something to explore. There's a housing shortage nationwide, and it's very possible that there's a housing shortage in your city. So maybe there are some incentives to building additional units. Maybe there's some incentives to renting out parts of your property, and you'll get some money and you'll also help with the housing shortage issue if there is one in your area. You can also rent out your home for things like podcast interviews, photo shoots, video shoots, small events or gatherings or meetings on websites like Peerspace. They can help you generate some additional income that'll offset the cost of your mortgage. So I want you to take some time and brainstorm some additional ways that you can generate income from your house so you don't have to sell it and you don't have to be under that burden of the mortgage if you're in a position where you're making so many sacrifices just to pay your mortgage. I want you to be encouraged, and I don't want you to give up. The main takeaways for this are to never overpay for a property. Don't let anyone pressure you to buy a property, and never buy a property without seeing it first. Now that you know about the housing payment crisis, I want you to learn how to buy a property for 10% down without a W-2 job, with no credit, and with no banks. Check out this video right here.